Welcome once again to Power Couples Rock Live. My name is Chris. This is my beautiful wife, my most beautiful wife, Sonya.
Hello, Power Couples.
And many of you who are joining us already live tonight, we're seeing you. Please welcome our most favorite power couple in the universe.
Yeah.
Carlos and Katherine Green.
Yes. Hello,
What's up?
Power Couples.
Yes.
Oh,
Virtual hug.
yes.
Virtual hug.
You guys.
I know.
Hey, welcome to the show, Power Couples.
Yes,
Yeah,
so good to see you guys. And I'm hoping, I'm so excited about tonight's show.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Very excited about tonight's show. But before I do that, just give us a couple of minutes. I want to just say a couple of things. One is that we see now how they can be positive or inspiring to each other. So I'm just pouring out energy blessings to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
In the coming week, we'll also bless other people. And so just showering you all with blessings now. And thank you all for being a part of our community. And I know that this past week, we've been with some issues with family members that have gotten sick or they lost some family members. We know they're very on the throne.
Yes. We want to just say, make sure that you get out in the community, do some like from a distance. So I'm excited about tonight and who we have.
Yeah, likewise. And Carlos and Katherine, your the audio is struggling our side. We didn't hear most of what you did say. It sounded very earnest, but unfortunately, like a lot of it was cutting out. We're getting some feedback there as well. So I'm not sure if maybe we bring you out and back in. If you guys want to maybe reboot the router, I think it's
yeah, we're gonna do that.
Okay, let's if we could. It's going to be the solo show with Chris and Sonya. But yeah, I think it's crazy during this time right now in that I feel like it's been about a month maybe or so where we've been not just social distancing, but really staying in our homes. And there's a lot of fear that's creeping in to a lot of relationships, and we're hearing things like domestic abuse numbers are rising, and so there's certainly struggles that are out there. But what I'm actually seeing as well is that all of this time that has been spent away from actual physical interaction and that community and all of that, is that people are kind of over it being away from each other. And so I'm not saying people aren't being responsible. It's not like people are running around shaking hands and doing high fives and whatnot. But I think people are going out of their ways and finding ways to connect where they can. And I realize we've all been spending a lot of time in front of our computer screens and our right now, like we are, tonight. And that really can't, unfortunately, replace, being together and in the same room with community, unfortunately. And that's what we've got to do. But I think a lot of people are finding creative ways of getting together, staying 6 feet apart, and trying to continue to come up with creative ways to do what we all knew what was important to do, and that is spend time together in community, especially as married couples.
So then, where can you hear me? Okay, better now?
I can, yeah.
Wonderful. Then can we see where some of our viewers are seeing us from, or like what
Yeah,
cities?
so let's so those of you who are on, we see a number of people that are on tonight. Please give us a shout out. Join in the discussion here. If this is your first time watching a Power Couples Rock Live, we, as you know, and maybe as you've heard from our podcast, we like to feed off the energy from the community, and so this is about a virtual community, if you will. So please, when you arrive, let us know where you're from. Harold Arnold, Dr. Harold has joined us.
Yes.
And I always feel like even if he's not on this thing, he's joining us in spirit.
Yes, I know.
Right?
Yes.
So, and we feel that for sure. But those of you who are joining, and we see a number of people now, it's ramping up. I'm seeing the numbers up. Let us know when you arrive. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you're joining us from. It's always great to see. And we had somebody from Mexico. We've had some people from Los Angeles, West Coast, East Coast, down south, Canada. Wherever you're from. We've got Sinner Q Man, hi Uncle and Auntie. I don't know. That's not my
nephew.
Okay, all right. I was good. I was going to clarify. Do I have a nephew that I don't know about?
Yes, you do. You're his uncle too.
Okay, all right, cool. We're all family.
We are family,
right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Harold, of course, always with Power Couples Rock in spirit.
I know.
Awesome.
I know.
Awesome. So yeah, give us a shout out, and also I'm glad we got the audio. Listen, it's live streaming, so everybody can kind of be a little forgiving. I'm sure you've been on some Zoom call where somebody doesn't know that the camera's on and they stand up and they may not have long pants on, or hey, listen, this is we're all susceptible to.
I saw one of those videos.
Right.
I saw one of those videos today. I was like, oh my God, that was so funny. But I want you guys to know that I definitely have on pants tonight.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm going to let you know I'm not going to stand up. So that's how that's going to roll. But listen, I look forward to every Friday night because this is our third installment of Power Couples Rock Live. And we set it off. And we came strong, of course, with Dr. Harold and Dahlia Arnold, as our first guest, and our first musical guest, Rick and Ruby Montgomery, who have launched their own live stream. And if you have not joined their Thursday night musical extravaganza experience that they have, it's something to really behold. It's really awesome,
amazing,
very good.
And of course, last week was amazing as well. 2 weeks ago. I'm saying last week.
Last week was Easter.
Right. Last week was Easter.
We took a
Thank
break.
you. And so I feel like we're raising the bar every week. And when I tell people about Power Couples Rock Live, and I tell them, the guests that we're having and the quality of guests that we're having, and I tell them about the next guest that we have on, and I tell them that we have music. And they're like, "Are you kidding me?" And they're going back and they're watching the replays, and they're listening to the music, and they can't believe that we're pulling this off. I guess. I mean, maybe it was under their expectations, but tonight, I say this every week, but I think we raised the bar. And one of the things that I get to do is, throughout the week, I can jump on with our guests and make sure that all the technical stuff is set up and everything. And I get to speak to our next guest, Dr. Buckingham, and kind of, spend some time with them. And then also the musical guests as well. And so Cole and Mindy Jennette next week, and I get to do a sound check and get to listen to their music and be inspired by their music, even before you guys ever get to experience.
I know.
I feel like I get a little sneak peek,
good.
So I get super excited, and so this is a treat for you all that are joining. And again, please, when you join, let us know if you've got any questions during the any of this, any comments. Please go ahead. You've got a chat. You know, we're getting a comment here from Dr. Harold. Dr. Dwayne Buckingham is the truth, and we do know
Yeah.
this. So those of you who are familiar with Power Couples Rock and the podcast, Carlos and Katherine went to Eusebia in Maryland and came back with a bevy of interview content from all of the wonderful speakers and people that were there. And there was one podcast that they came back with that we got the most feedback from, that was like, this guy went deep. This
Yes.
guy went to places that other people are maybe afraid to talk about, right? Maybe it's, he goes into places that may not necessarily be safe and makes you think about things. So Carlos, I'll roll it over to you to introduce our special guest.
Where you did say it right. We had gone to Eusebia last year and was honored and blessed by this doctor that is a psychotherapist, and he hails from the great state of Maryland. And he's actually been doing his job, his profession for 20 plus years now. And his story was so engaging, and it really allowed us to take a step back and understand who we are and who we should be before we enter into this great state of marriage. And he actually has just been, over the last few months, he and I have become even closer, just because I just salivate over the information that he brings every time I get on a conversation with him. Here's the thing. So I'll get on the phone with him and I'll say, hey, Dr. Buckingham, I just got about 2 minutes. We're just going to talk about this and whatever. And before you know it, 60 minutes has passed, because I'm sucking every ounce of information that he can actually give us. So I'm not going to keep everybody in suspense any longer.
I know,
right?
It's the
So
truth.
Our Power Couples Rock community and others, please welcome to our show, Dr. Dwayne Buckingham.
The wavy fingers, the hugs.
Yeah, the virtual hug, sir. It's so good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my God. We have been anticipating this show for the last couple of weeks. And I'll have to say, everybody in our viewing audience, Dr. Dwayne Buckingham is so easy to work with. He has been so responsive. He's been prompt. He's given us amazing information and content that we cannot wait to share with you tonight. So let's launch right into this. What I would love to do, Dr. Dwayne Buckingham, please just introduce yourself, who you are. Tell us about R.E.A.L Horizons consulting firm, and then what your specialty is.
Okay, so a little bit about me. I've actually have been in the field a little bit over around 23 years. Most of my training is coming from the military. I was in the Air Force for about a decade. I was stationed in Germany and Turkey. I've traveled all over the world and worked with individuals from different ethnic backgrounds. And so I have been very, very, very thoroughly trained in this area of mental health. I've probably worked in every aspect of mental health that you can think of, whether it be substance abuse, family maltreatment, running mental health clinics. And one of the things that I like to hang my shingles on is that I actually was a chief of resiliency and psychological health services at Walter Reed, and that's our president's hospital, Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And I did that for 7 years. And in that role, I was responsible for providing education and training and resiliency development coaching to our senior leaders and to our wounded warriors. And so that fits right into my personal life. I come from a single parent household. I'm the second youngest of 8 children, lost my mother at 17. So had a lot of adversity. And so to naturally be in the space where I'm actually helping people bounce back from adversity is really kind of like what I love to do. And as a result of loving to do that, I actually created my business, R.E.A.L Horizons Consulting Solutions, in 2007. And the whole goal really was to empower individuals and couples and families how to keep it real. And so this acronym of R.E.A.L is realistic approach, rational expectations, positive attitude, and unconditional love. And so this is my formula that no matter what adversity you have to approach it realistically, meaning see it for what it is. Don't run from it. Don't deny it. You have to have expectations that, you know, are there and they're realistic. You have to have this positive attitude about how you navigate through life. And more importantly, unconditional love for yourself and for others. And so Real Horizons Consulting Solutions, whether I'm talking to corporate leaders, whether I'm talking to couples, that's the formula that I use to help people navigate this world. So a little bit about me. Yeah.
I love that. So you, Real Horizons, we were going to ask you what that acronym stood for. So thank you for already precursing that and making sure that we understood that. Here's what the question I want to ask you is that why and how did you get into becoming a psychotherapist, and what is a psychotherapist?
Okay, well, I came into this space, as I mentioned, unfortunately had a lot of trauma growing up. I can remember from the early ages of just growing up in the inner city ghetto, living in what we call the Coldwater Flats. They were called the Coldwater Flats because we didn't have hot water, and we had to actually share our living quarters with rats and roaches, and there was a lot of violence and, you know, whatnot. And so at the early age, I think around 6, I began to ask myself, like, who am I? And does my life have any meaning? I mean, very profound questions be asking yourself that at age 6. And so those questions was resonating in my soul. Who am I? And does my life have meaning? Because I was exposed to so much suffering at such a young age. I was wondering, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Like, God, why me? And that thinking, even at age 6, continued on. And although I was able to work through some adversity of losing my mother and being shot and some other kinds of things, those 2 questions was just dwelling in my soul. And it pushed me to want to go into this area called mental health, because I had this burning desire to want to figure out, why is it that people suffer? And not only why is it why we suffer, but what can be done to help people? And that propelled me into this space of mental health to dwell and to dive in as a psychotherapist, basically, which is an individual who dives into the mindset of the human behavior. And we process not only the mindset, but the behavior and the environments that actually shape the mindset. So psychotherapist focuses on the psyche, the psychological aspects of how we're made up.
Wow. And so, Dr. Buckingham, would you say that most of what you deal with is centered around married couples in terms of psychotherapy?
Well, so I actually, individuals, I have programs and I've written about 12 books. So I actually tend to focus on individuals, like singles, focus on married individuals. So I tackle families, groups. And so I do group therapy, family therapy, individual therapy, and marital therapy.
Okay. And I would imagine during this time, and we kind of talked about it at the top of the show, you know, when everyone's routines have been turned upside down in the past month, and everyone's at home, and we start to see, you know, some of the numbers that are coming out in terms of, you know, domestic abuse and you know, all of these things about, you know, just people just sort of shoved into this kind of thing. During this time, are you dealing with that kind of stuff, and do you have any maybe you know, practical solutions maybe for couples that may be listening, watching right now around this time of the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think we have been hearing about domestic violence numbers and things like that increasing because now people are in isolation. And so the things that are happening in the dark are remaining in the dark, unfortunately. And so with that, what I would encourage all of us to do is to make sure you pick up the phone and call individuals and check in on individuals, and even try to do virtual examinations of them, you know, meaning Skype, Zoom, whatever you can do, or even FaceTime for that matter, to see if you can get a physical observation of what's going on with them. Because again, in the domestic violence kind of world, their perpetrators are there with a certain amount of intimidation. And so sometimes if you can't physically see what's going on with their nonverbals. You really can't pick up over the phone what's always happening with them. And so I think we just need to think about that. The other side of, I think, as we're dealing with being in isolation per se, is for even for couples, what I'm finding with my own wife, individuals are saying this is the time that we need to bond, we need to come together, we need to spend this time to learn more about each other. And that is true. But I also just wanted to put this out here, as I've been telling individuals, what we're also experiencing now is times where we don't have individual time because we're in together all day, every day, as to where prior to this, we would have time to come apart and decompensate and be individuals who can bring back wholeness into the marriage. So while individuals will say, make your marriage stronger during this time, I totally agree with that. But don't get lost in trying to build in some individual time in this closed in time.
That's good advice.
It is. So how would one build in their individual time then, Dr. Buckingham, so that they can kind of release some of their pressures and then come back into the household?
Right. So great question, because as I was mentioning to you all, I have babies. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so this ideal of having individual time, we have to go and do shift work. And so if you have kids, you do shifts. You shift off and say, hey, this is the time where I need to go work out and have some me time. This is the time where I need to just go out and watch, a little TV or some news for 30 minutes. And so you do shift work to kind of like split up when you can get that alone time. And so that's kind of like what we've worked out. And, you find things that are pleasurable to you. For me, I love to work out. And so I'll say to my wife, I need about an hour. And we just split the time. And so you find those times by splitting the hours.
I like that.
I love that idea.
I see on the screen that you're known as the ER doctor.
Yeah.
Explain that. Do you work in a hospital?
I have a feeling it doesn't mean emergency
room,
room,
or does that stand for something else?
That's great. It does. This whole thing about ER doctor. When you have an emergency, when you have a crisis and you need immediate help, where do you go? You go to the ER. So the ER doctor, I actually got the name as I was working at Walter Reed, and I was doing a lot of, probably 80% of the marriage counseling out of 60 providers within our clinics. And so I was labeled with a couple of names. One was the love doctor, and then I was given the ER doctor. And the ER doctor refers to empathy and resiliency. I specialize in empathy and resiliency. And so when your relationship, when your life, and when you're dealing with any kind of adversity, the goal is to bounce back and refer to that as resiliency. And then even if you have any turmoil with your spouse, if you can place yourself in their shoes to try to connect and bond and restore with them, we refer to that as empathy. So I teach people those two fundamental skills that you have to have.
So define for us again, empathy, what that is.
Yes.
And then resilience, what is that?
Right. So empathy is taking yourself and putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right? Now, when people say putting yourself in someone else's shoes, it's literally designed so that you can see from their perspective. It doesn't mean that you agree with their perspective, but if I'm sad, if I'm feeling down, and instead of focusing on the issue that makes me sad or makes me down, we use empathy to try to help you connect with the emotional undertone, because people move based on emotions, not necessarily situations. So empathy is saying, hey, let me move in this space so I can develop a certain amount of compassion for what other individuals are going through. I may not be homeless, but I wonder what it would be like if I could not eat. I may not be divorced, but I wonder what it would be like to lose my kids. That's what it does for you.
Wow. That's killer, because, during this time, right, everyone seems to start to think individually. Yeah. Like, how is this affecting me? I've lost my job. Or how is this affecting me? I can't do this. I'm in this sort of situation. But from an empathetic standpoint, what are we doing for others?
Exactly. That is right. Empathy helps facilitate this thing called gratitude. Like, you know, we can look at ourselves and be grateful, but also we can use empathy to look at how maybe we can be a blessing to somebody else.
I think gratitude is huge during this time, to be really grateful for what you do have instead of what you've lost.
Yeah.
I would love to hear. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Buckingham.
And so the empathy piece and then the resiliency piece, they go hand in hand. When I talk about them, I talk to them, you know, simultaneously at the same time. Literally, that's where the ER comes from, because resiliency is the ability, as you can see, basic definitions, to bounce back after being exposed to or faced with adversity, right? And so it's my ability to move forward. However, I've added another component to resiliency, because it's not just about bouncing back. It's about bouncing back wiser, better, and stronger. See, anybody can just bounce back, but the idea behind resiliency is that you should come out of your adversity better. And I teach people come out better. Just don't come out.
Right. And that's great that you would talk about that, because, you know, we're again in this 30 plus days. You know, what are some things that we can do to look forward to bouncing back? Because, you know,
bouncing back better.
Bouncing back better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things too, I think, you know, you can spend your time focusing on what you're missing, or you can spend your time focusing on what you can develop. So this is the ideal. So when we talk about bounce back, we look and we think about what have we missed and what have we gone through. But as I was just defining, my sense of resiliency is, what do I look forward to? Like, what is going to propel me to be better after I come out of this? So if I was struggling financially, and as a result of now working home or losing my job, I can sit back and I could dwell on that, or I can begin to use this time to develop a strategy to figure out that, unfortunately, if we ever hit this point again, I'll have a backup plan. What's happening in the mental health field, for example, a lot of mental health professionals only do face-to-face therapy. And thank God that I was in front of the curve, and I had already started doing telemental health a couple years ago. So now that everyone's rushing to telemental health because they are trying to create income, I'm already in that space. But I don't in the telemental health space. I'm thinking about what I can do after this is over to propel me to come out successfully. That's what resilience really is about.
So what I'd love to be able to do is to reach out to the community. We've got a lot of people that are on tonight that have been bouncing in and out. And we'd love to hear from those of you who are watching. Dr. Buckingham, this is amazing information, and it's not not often or ever where you're able to share with someone like yourself. But I just kind of want to put it out there to the community. And there's a couple of things. One thing we talked about in terms of empathy, and that is, what are some ways maybe that you've been during this time, what you've been doing to give back to your community? What are you doing to reach out to others? And it could be just something little. It could be just, you know, involving your neighbors in some way, shape, or form. And you know, how are we sort of turning the light away from ourselves and trying to pull in some people from the outside. And the other thing that I would encourage some feedback from the community, and that you talked about, that I really didn't think about this at all, is, what are we doing for ourselves to take care of ourselves too in this situation as married couples, right? So is it a self-care situation? Is it hey, you know, are the spouses allowing for some individual time for the husband and for the wife? I'd love to hear some ideas. So we can find some individual time, because maybe we need a little bit during that.
I know.
But if those of you in the community have some comments, we'd love to hear, and we've got some coming in here. Lisa Charbonneau says it's an opportunity and a challenge to bounce back better and stronger. 100%, Lisa.
100%. I know a couple of things. Katherine and I actually have been on our exercise regimen even more. Even though if we can't go to a gym or whatever, we're exercising outside in the yard or in our driveway. Yeah. Another thing that I did, two things that I did. One is that I've actually joined a consulting group for the position that I'm in that will help me in strategic planning
Yeah.
And so I know I can use that element or that competency going forward, even after this, so I can feel like I'm growing stronger and bouncing back better. And then the last one is I just enrolled in a high performance leadership development program that is sponsored by Colin Powell.
Yeah.
And I just thought, since I've got that additional time, what can I do in this period or this season that when it's over, I'm stronger or I'm bouncing back better than what I was before? So thank you for that gem, Dr. Buckingham.
Yes, those things are all important that you do. And again, I think it's being creative inside of your home. You know, some individuals say, well, I don't, you know, I'm blessed. I have a gym and some weights and things like that. But I said, well, do you have stairs? And so you can't tell me you can't do it up and down the stairs. And so I think this is a time where creativity can be born. It can be nurtured, and allow your mind to just go to places that when we're in the rat race, when we're just humping and getting on the metros and driving and doing this and that, we're consumed with the daily grind. But this is a time to be still and be at peace. And this is where you truly find out who you are. It's in the calmness is when you find out truly who you are, because in the rat race, you got enough to keep you going where you're distracted about focusing on who you really are. So use time, read books, explore, ask some deep, profound questions of who you are during this time. And I guarantee you, you'll find the strengths that can help you bounce back.
Then what happens then, Dr. Buckingham, when you have people who are experiencing some challenges because they've got family members or friends that have been impacted by COVID-19? They may be really sick, or they're just one person removed, and you've got that weight on you. How do you actually push through that so that you can have that positive attitude?
Right. Great question. And I tell people, you want to manage your anxiety by managing your source. So even with COVID-19, my niece and her husband, the entire family was infected, and her husband ended up in the emergency room and hospital for several days. I have a cousin who currently has it now. My wife's cousin has it. And so we're being touched by it personally. And what I say to my wife is minimize the amount of time that you're allowing that stuff to seek into your soul. Because Monday from Wednesday is not going to change. What they said about it on Monday is not going to change drastically from Wednesday. Be informed, not obsessed.
That's good. That's good.
That's
Good
really
advice.
good.
Yeah.
We got a comment here from Adam Mixon. Suggestions for children whose entire schedule has changed, school age and college age. We are really a talkative family and we like to play together, but sometimes there's just some blues that hover.
Wow.
Yes. And if I can be transparent, one of the things that I say about being an ER doctor is I do not claim not to have the blues. You know, we're in the home, and I say I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so, you know, we're on top of each other. In those situations with kids and this, that, we're very talkative. But I would also offer during that particular time where you guys like to play, you like to talk, but you're in some of these kind of like deep spaces, use that time to actually talk about the deep spaces or the blue spaces. I mean, address it, because what happens is sometimes when we get in these spaces, because we feel uncomfortable, we don't attempt to address it. But this is the opportunity to have some talks about how we're feeling. And so that's one way to really just kind of deal with the uncomfortableness or the heaviness or the gloom that appears to be there, is to kind of talk about it. The other thing I would be amiss, it's not for all, but obviously I would say to people, pray about it. You know, that's the other thing that I do. Again, it's not necessarily you have to be a super religious person, but what I like to think about spirituality, it's psychology on steroids. Like, you know, this psychology thing we got going on is nothing compared to what spirituality does, because it puts you in a whole different mindset. And so, you know, when you're feeling blue, as we like to refer to sometimes, feeling blue or feeling down in the Black communities refers to a little depression, a little downness. You know, you got to lift your spirit up is the point of looking for prayer sometimes.
I think it's important. I'm sorry, Katherine, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's important for us to allow our kids to see us as real people with real emotions and real feelings, and to let them kind of help us work through those. So I think that's important.
Yes.
as
I
parents.
that's a great point that you talk about the children, because I know mentally, I know a lot of the children was prior to COVID-19 were having some mental challenges and suffering from all of the schoolwork that they were having. They were being depressed by that, and now it's a whole new norm for them. And so, how can parents practice, mental healthy behaviors to mimic for their children?
Yeah, I think, for me, I think one way is depending on what your situation is, I still have to work every day, all day. And so, like you say, with this whole kind of school situation, my kids and whatnot, they're a little antsy. I'm a little antsy. Everybody a little antsy. And so, what I try to do though is to be mindful. We use the word mindfulness, right? We do this thing called mindfulness. And so, what I think parents can do to model is to try to pay attention to the emotions that they're putting out.
Mhm.
And then when you're noticing that, it's through mindfulness, pay attention. And when you notice that, give yourself a timeout, put yourself in a timeout, and give yourself some time to decompensate and come down and then re-engage with your kind of like kids, modeling for them that when you're feeling a certain way, you don't always have to act on how you feel. Give yourself a timeout and then come back and then try to re-engage. And so that's a way of modeling to them sometimes how to manage emotion when the emotion is kind of raw, is time out.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I've thought about now that we're doing a whole lot of things that are on the computer, like day in and day out. I'm feeling like that generation that uses electronics all the time now. I understand being on it all day because all of our meetings are on there, it's a great tool, but sometimes it can be overwhelming and mentally draining. I don't know about for you, but I wanted to mention, you guys talked about something that I've been doing to step away is to walk around the neighborhood. And we on a group group run activity app. And my neighbors have been putting signs in their yards and just saying, wave, honk it, we love you. And those types of things give you inspiration, and it really encourages you and make you feel grateful. First of all, to get some vitamin D in your life.
Exactly.
Because I don't know about you all, but my vitamin D level had gone down when COVID-19 hit because I was on the computer a lot and not taking as many breaks. You may can talk about how unhealthy that is to just sit there and not, get up and do things.
Yes, get out and walk, hit the neighborhood. We go out in the backyard with the kids and let them run. And so, yeah, you have to get out there, and you can't be controlled by fear. I mean, because fear is actually opposite of faith. I mean, so if you're going to tell me that you're faithful, then you cannot let this thing called fear dominate you.
That's right.
And you have to find ways to build up that faith that carries you, and energy. And getting out is one of the ways that you kind of like do that. I'm not saying put yourself in any dangerous situation, but don't be afraid to walk around the neighborhood and be safe, because we have to get out of the space of just living in fear.
Amen.
Is there anything, and we're going to switch here because we want to get to the offering of what you have for people that are viewing the show tonight. But is there any one particular scripture that you go to when you're trying to lift the blues, or that will inspire you to move forward?
Well, I don't have a particular, as I had said when I met you guys, I'm a Proverbs man. And so I tell people that whenever you're dealing with any kind of issues, for me, go to the book of knowledge, book of wisdom. I mean, I promise you, there's whatever issue you have, there's a Proverbs to address it and give you an answer. And so that's what I would tell people, do spend a little time in Proverbs. If you lack in knowledge or wisdom, go there. If you lack and you're suffering this thing called fear, go there, dwell into that. And I use the word dwell, dive into some Proverbs. And I guarantee you'll be a better person.
Psalms is a good book to during this time as well.
Yes, Psalms and Proverbs.
That's it. That's kind of like in the middle of the Bible, okay?
Yeah,
Just
and right next to each other.
right in the middle, right next to each other. I love it. That's awesome. But Dr. Buckingham, you have blessed us with a tool that every viewer here can download and take. Can you give us what that tool is that you're offering to everyone for free?
Right. So one of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, we're struggling to figure out how we're going to nurture and build on our relationships, right? And this is the time to kind of do that. For some of us, we're building, and some of us are figuring out whether or not we even want to be married. And so I created this tool.
We're still figuring it out.
We're 28 years in. I think we're going to stay there.
So I created this tool that is actually dual purpose. It's for single and married. And so how do you create a tool or assessment that's, for single and married? And basically it's called the Marriage Quality Profile Assessment. And the key words here, quality. Because anybody can get married, but we're talking about quality. And so in the work that I've done, I've literally had the opportunity to probably sit down with over 30,000 individuals. Like literally, I've seen a lot of people doing this therapy thing. And so from that, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the dark, and everything in between. And so from my work, I created this assessment to help people understand that if you want to have a quality marriage, there are 7 personal qualities that you and or your spouse should possess or have. And so in this assessment, there's 70 questions. And at the end of the 70 questions, it's going to let you know whether or not you're quality material for marriage. And these 7 qualities that I've highlighted based on my work, one is forgiving, because any marriage that is going to last, there has to be a forgiving component. Forgiving, that's will it and able to forgive. And you have to have compassion, merciful compassion, right? So that's the first quality. The second quality is an effective communicator, not someone who just talks, because somebody and everybody talks. But the key word here is effective communicator. And that delivers messages with clarity. See, do you deliver a message that your spouse receives and isn't in clarity? That's effective communication. Respectful. Respect differences and shows admiration. So I didn't say we have to agree with differences. We can respect differences and show admiration. Now, integrity driven. Are you integrity driven? Are you the kind of person who behaves righteously in the presence and the absence of your spouse? Are you integrity driven? Wow. And then self-confident. Nobody can be in the marriage with someone who needs reinforcement all the time. Yourself, I like that. And be free of doubt. Right. Self-confidence is critical to being in a healthy marriage. Trust, behave in a manner and believe in your partner and eliminate suspiciousness. Every healthy relationship has to have trust. And then the seventh, and probably one of the most important personal qualities, is emotional resiliency. Emotional resiliency is your ability to adapt to stressful situations. There's some people that when the going gets rough, they get going. And so when you're emotionally resilient, every marriage has its problems. But those who are emotionally resilient learn how to work through those problems.
I love that. So for those of you who are on board here, and I see a lot of you out there, I'm posting right now in the chat the link for you to access your marriage quality profile assessment. And I'm excited to do this.
So what happens when
also
you get
a little
to the
scared.
end and you don't have a 7?
What happens when you get to the end and you realize, oh, I am jacked up? That's not a clinical term, but I am jacked up. Call me.
We call you.
All right, exactly. That's
I was getting a little nervous as she was going down the list. I said, I thought I was a marriage quality material.
You is, baby. You is. You is marriage quality material.
No, but listen, Dr. Buckingham, I loved the sharing this with you. I love your story, where you came from and what you chose to do in the midst of that. And this whole thing, this assessment and everything that you do, you're looking to preemptively look to have people avoid these pitfalls, and how you can work with them on the front end. And obviously it's never too late. If you've been married for 25 plus years and you take this assessment, you can always improve in anything you do. But I just appreciate the fact that that you're doing this, and your heart for married couples, and where it all was derived. So thank you so much for this. This has been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I do believe that if you're living, you should be learning. So,
right.
I don't really, give a lot of credit to when people get to saying, I've been married for 30 years or 40 years. I'm saying, if you're still breathing, you should be learning something.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
You should be growing in your relationship.
Yes.
Ongoing.
So then, before we let you go, how can people get in touch with you?
The easiest way, everybody throw out the social media handles, but I'll just say drbuckingham.com, drbbuckingham.com. And you go right there to my website, and my email, and everything is there to where you can reach out to me.
But thank you so much. And don't sign off yet. We want to bring you back on, but we're going to transition into our musical guest now. But this has been amazing. It's been so engaging and so informative. I can't thank you. We can't thank you enough.
It's real stuff.
For what you've been able to provide to us and our viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, so everybody, the links to download the assessment is in the chat. drbuckingham.com. That's also in the chat. And I can't wait. Carlos, I'm gonna let you introduce our musical guest. So the platform is yours.
Yeah, our musical guests here are great friends of ours. I'm telling you, these guys have a voice that their harmonies are so tight. They've been married for years. I had the opportunity of hearing them sing because they did some things for the church that we attend. And when Mindy's sister got married, I was able to see them at that point. And it's been so wonderful. So I'm not going to give you a long introduction, but now I want to actually bring on Cole and Mindy Jennette, all the way from Georgia.
All the way from Grayson.
Man.
Yes.
You should have undersold that. That was an oversell.
No, it's not. I'm probably underselling you now at this point, Cole and Mindy. It's just so it warms my heart to see you guys here and getting ready to bless us with some music here.
Yeah.
So tell us just how long you guys have been married, and then what song you guys are going to do for us.
Yeah, me too.
We'll try at the same time and see if we get the number right.
1, 2, 3, 13.
You guys didn't even rehearse that. I could tell it was natural.
Totally. Yeah, we got married really young. So we've been married 13 years, and we're 33. So, we got married when we were 20. We had all 3 of our kids before we were 23.
Wow.
Which was we'll call it challenging.
Adventurous.
You rent a car until you're 24. It's because there's a little part of your brain that's not developed yet, and it's the part that assesses risk.
Wow.
You can't assess risk in that situation.
Yeah, they are. You guys have some wonderful children. And if people haven't seen you all, I would love for them to see where they could get in touch with you all after you guys do your singing. So let's make sure that people will know how to follow you all. Okay. What are you guys going to bless us with tonight?
So this was a song on this is the only record that we've done. It was about 5 years ago. There's a song called Great Grace. It just comes out of Philippians 2, where he's talking about working out your salvation and working forward. And he says that it's God's grace to both want to do the right thing, but both to do it and to want to do it. And I just took a lot of comfort that even when I'm screwing up over and over, that even mourning and that longing to do the right thing, that's already God's grace at work in my life. And so yeah, this is great grace. Should we jump into it?
Yes, go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cole and Mindy Jennette.
I'm in 6A again, huh? Hey, you gotta sing a harmony this out
Okay.
to show Carlos up.
I know he said something about it.
Here we go. I can see you now, there somehow, in the moments that I don't speak about. And what gets me most is the way you hold me, the way you love me, even when I fall. When I couldn't get to you, oh, you came to me, and God, in your great grace, you give me strength to long for and do your will. In my day of doubt, you won't walk out. Your love for your child is strong. Your love for your child is strong. And this freedom here in my thankful tears, all my wasted years fully forgiven. So I walk today in the same way as I found your grace, holy surrender. When I couldn't get to you, oh, you came to me, God, in your great grace, you give me strength to long for and do your will. In my day of doubt, you won't walk out. Your love for your child is strong. Your love for your child is strong. There's no sin, there's no fear, there's no place your grace can't find me. There's no sin, there's no fear, there's no place your grace can't find me. There's no sin, there's no fear, there's no place your grace can't find me. There's no sin, no fear, no place your grace, no height, no depth, no place your grace can't find me. No height, no depth, no place your grace can't find me. God, in your great grace, you give me strength to long for and do. In my day of doubt, you won't walk out. Your love for your child is strong. Your love for your child
was
Oh
awesome.
man.
Thank you guys.
That's great harmony.
I told you.
Oh my
Love
goodness.
I told you.
Wow. You know,
What a
it-
power couple you are.
it's wild when you see them perform together. You can totally tell, right? You can totally tell they're in love. You could totally
13
tell that. Man, that's awesome.
Sharing a mic thing where you're.
Oh, right.
Let's sing a romantic song.
No, the harmony was on point.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you all for sharing that. Did you all meet singing or what?
We connected about singing, but we knew each other in high school.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
So
Say that again, Mindy.
I said I thought he was cute in middle school. I have a little smiley face by his picture.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, that is
That is
cute.
great.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
I love
So Cole, you wrote that song?
Yeah, that was on the record that we put out. Gosh, it's been 5 years. It feels like it was yesterday, but
Wow. That was so encouraging. And that was
This is the record. I know when I do this on the screen, it basically covers everyone's face.
yeah.
So I apologize for that. But this is the album Cole Jennette Coming Home. Available everywhere. And of course, you can go to Cole Jennette Music and go and grab it, CD, digitally. I'm sure it's available everywhere. The streaming and the internets, all of that good stuff, right?
YouTube,
Yeah.
interwebs, everywhere there's music.
Everywhere.
This is the guitar on that record, which is happening.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Nice.
that is so nice.
You guys, thank you so much for sharing your gift with
Yeah, thanks
us,
for having us.
with everyone that's viewing this now and that will view this afterwards. That was amazing. We're going to bring Dr. Buckingham back on. Welcome again, Dr. Buckingham. Hey. Some of it, we're getting some feedback from some people that they weren't able to see the link for the marriage assessment profile. So if you have problems and you've mentioned that in the chat, we'll send the link directly to you from Facebook. We just tried it again. So if you're having an issue getting the link and being able to download the marriage assessment, let us know. powercouplesrock.com. You can contact us in a million different ways, and we'll be sure to send that to you. And we'll be sharing Dr. Buckingham's email address as well in the chat if you want to get a hold of him directly. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Buckingham, give us some last thoughts and words of wisdom as we go forward in this unprecedented time that we're in as we grow and nourish our learning.
Yeah. So I would just say, let your heart do the singing for you.
Oh.
Ooh.
And what I mean by that is your heart. Our minds can be heavy, can play tricks on us, but typically our hearts are pure. And so when you allow your heart to do the singing for you, meaning guide, you don't go too far in the wrong direction. So I say follow your heart and not allow your mind to be dwelled in all this negative energy, and spend some time nurturing the very thing that makes us human, which is the heart. It helps us with compassion. It helps us with empathy. It helps us with gratitude. And our minds can be distracted, but that heart, when you feel, allow that to be your guidepost.
Thank you, Dr. Buckingham. Cole and Mindy, you rock.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. I want to thank all of our viewers for being on tonight with us and participating and being engaged in this discussion. Great knowledge from Dr. Buckingham, great musical song, an inspiring song from the Jennettes, which we absolutely love.
Yes. You can always go to Power Couples Rock to keep up with us. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes.
So with that being said,
Let's get
power up!